Believe it or not, we're already about an eighth of the way through the major league season. And some players just don't seem to have realized that it even started. There's some frontline pitchers, some well known aces, and a couple of hitters that, well, the patience is just running out. So I know you got questions. There's some big name players here. You want to know, what do you do? Do you just drop them, trade them for whatever you can get? Do you keep the faith? I'll do the best I can to let you know exactly how worried I am, how worried you should be, and what you should do in this case. A good place to start seems to be Chris Sale, the ace, or, well, I guess now he's the number two guy for Atlanta, right? With Spencer Strider back. So, Chris Sale, you expect to be an ace for your fantasy team. He was amazing last year. Amazing first, and that just, he stayed healthy all year. I really didn't think it could happen, and it did. And so far, so good this year, except not good because the results have not been even close. He had allowed at least 3 earned runs in each of his first 4 starts, and then on his most recent start on Saturday, only gave up 2 runs, except that he only went 4 and 1/3 innings, which means now 3 straight outings. He hasn't even lasted 5 frames. So we're now 5 starts into the season, and Chris Sale doesn't have even a single quality start. It's odd considering how dominant he was last year, but really the most bizarre part is that it does not seem to be injury related, at least as far as we know. I mean, sure, he's 36 now. This is an older pitcher who's had his arm troubles in the past, but you don't go from being so good just a year ago to looking very mediocre at best. So if you're hoping for some good news, okay, I got a little bit. Well, let's start with the fact that he's underachieving a little bit. I know it's still early to dig too much into overachievement versus underachievement and expected versus real stats, but look, he's got 5 starts now under his belt. His 313 batting average against is not good, but his 250 expected batting average is not too bad. And overall, his 324 x WOBA, which is one of those stats that kind of encompasses all the things that a pitcher is supposed to do, not allowing runners on base mainly. Well, it's not great, but it's at least in the top half of the league. It's better than league average. And actually, his K minus BB rate is still excellent at 22.7%. He is still getting strikeouts, almost a 30% rate, and he's not walking a lot of batters. So are we really just going to chalk this up to bad luck? No, it's not that simple, right? He's not just getting bad luck. He's having some bad outcomes, and he's not executing very well on all of his pitches. I do also think to some extent the schedule has part to play in this because it was actually really brutal over his first 4 starts. Had to face the Padres, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Rays, all of whom are in the top half of the league in batting average. The Padres actually came into the weekend first overall. The Rays were 4th. The Phillies 12th. Dodgers, believe it or not, were last in that category among those 4 teams at 15th. But the Dodgers are also 4th in the league in slugging, and they are pretty good. Now, this latest start, it was against the Twins. I can't make any great excuses for him, but again, he wasn't bad. It's just not going very deep into games, and that's concerning. He's struggling. He's laboring a little bit to get through even 5 frames. Like I said, he hasn't even gone past 5 full innings in a game yet. I've got to think it's going to happen. And so, while sure, there are definitely reasons to be concerned, if it's nothing physical, and again, it doesn't seem to be. Probably feel like I should go higher with this, but right now I'm going to keep the panic meter at just a 5. I think there's a buy low opportunity for him. Now, I'm not going to put him on the buy low video, as you can tell, because I'm talking about him here. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go out and actively seek him in trades because there is still some cause for concern, but at the same time, I'm absolutely not dropping him, and I'm probably not even going to bench him for his next start. Now, that next start will come on the road against Arizona. Arizona has been a hot offense, but it's also a pretty good park, and the Diamondbacks have cooled down a little bit since the beginning of the season, so I don't see any reason to bench him. I know it can be a little frightening when a guy has been going so badly early in the season, but this is someone I think has earned the benefit of the doubt. Now, you'd think the same should be said for Luis Castillo of the Mariners. And just to clarify, yes, I'm talking about Luis M. Castillo, not Luis F. Castillo of the Mariners. There really should be a rule about teams not having the same exact name for 2 different players allowed. It just shouldn't be legal. But anyways, in his latest start, Luis Castillo, 3 earned runs in 5 innings. Not bad. Plenty of pitchers get through that kind of an outing, and it would be okay, except that this is a continuation of a trend where he's just been okay, just mediocre, not great, not the Luis Castillo we've come to expect. Although, I do have to say, this is what I expected. And I can say that because he was on my preseason draft bust list. Now, again, to clarify here, not saying that I think he's just going to completely implode and be useless for fantasy. I don't think that. But I know I didn't want to draft him at where he was being taken. And I know that I felt pretty confident he was going to take another step back this year because that's what he's been doing. Now, on the season, his ERA is 4.44. Not terrible, not anything that can't be corrected if he has another very strong start or two. Very possible, but I'm looking at the trends here. I see more reason for concern. His whip has gradually increased since 2020, and here's the other thing that really has me worried. Since 2022, he's losing some velocity on all his pitch types. So that has led to his xwOBA continuing to climb. Again, it's very subtle, and you wouldn't notice if you didn't really see this as a trend happening and pay attention to it, but it's there. And if it climbs just a little bit more, you're looking at a guy who actually might hurt your whip, and he's certainly not helping you in ERA. And the strikeout advantage, that is gone as well. Back in the days of Cincinnati, I mean, he was posting a strikeout rate at or near 30%. And last year, again, over the course of a full season, 175 innings pitched, only 24.3%, is barely above league average. And now here we are. Again, it's early, but it's sitting at a 19% below league average. Personally, I don't think I can put the panic meter for Luis Castillo any lower than an 8. If I had drafted Castillo expecting kind of the same as last year, well, maybe even some optimism, he comes back to his 2022 form, then yeah, I would be panicked at about a 9. But for me, again, didn't take him anywhere, kind of saw this coming, but I think anybody who has him in fantasy should definitely be worried, and I would move on from him now. So should we say the same about Sandy Alcantara, who didn't pitch last year, and maybe that's why he has struggled to start this season? I actually thought he would be a great bounce back candidate, but so far the numbers have proven that wrong. I mean, he hadn't been great in any of his first 3 starts, but his most recent outing against the Phillies really stands out. Give up 6 earned runs in just 2 innings. You want to talk about a worrisome ratio? But 13 strikeouts compared to 10 walks, and that's across 17 innings pitched. It's fair to ask, is he dust? I'm going to say no here for a couple of reasons. Now, one big concern people had with Alcantara before the season, which was totally justifiable and still, I believe, completely correct, is that he'll get traded. So because of that, the Marlins are going to try to restrict his innings. At first, that was easily dismissed, and now I think we have to kind of just acknowledge that seems to be what's happening because, yeah, he did struggle against the Phillies, but you got to wonder if it was a different pitcher, different situation. And I don't think it's just the injury recovery here. He looks fine. He's healthy. Why don't they just let him go at least another inning or two and try to recover from it and bounce back? And they didn't do that. Now, in his previous start, he actually came 1 out away from going 6 innings, which is pretty solid. And he had been trending upwards until this happened. I'm going to be optimistic here and think this is more of a blip on the radar, a good offense, a bad outing. It was his first road game, whatever. I think Alcantara will be fine. Now, it's going to be rough in the early going because he's not going to get stretched out too long. But what I've been saying with Alcantara is I want to play the long game because, first of all, if they actually are going to trade him and try to get maximum value, they're going to have to put him out there, right? If he's absolutely unproductive throughout the whole first half of the season, then who is going to trade for him, right? So maybe April is going to be rough. May, we'll see. But look, gradually he's going to be going at least 6 innings, I think. He'll start to round into shape as well. Sure, there's probably a little bit of rust that needs to get knocked off here. I'm going to chalk it up mostly to that. But again, the second half, you can see a guy who is a former Cy Young winner not that long ago. He's still under 30. He seems to be good in terms of arm health. And he's going to be playing finally for a winning team. So I don't think this is the time, but maybe in a couple weeks we can start entertaining the thought of buying low on Alcantara. So if I have him on my roster right now, which I do in a couple of spots, how worried am I for him, assuming I just keep him all season long? I'll put it at a 6. I can't completely ignore what we've seen so far, but I'm also going to try to take the long view. Now let's take another step back chronologically and go with a slightly younger pitcher, Tanner Bibee, who should have been a solid, dependable kind of number 2 or 3 pitcher in your rotation, and he is now looking quite droppable. A 5.85 ERA, a 1.50 WHIP, only 15 Ks in 20 innings. And if you want to talk about trends, his ERA is definitely trending the wrong way. Now, Bibby did have kind of a rough patch in May of last season, wasn't quite living up to expectations, but then turned around big time. So you got to wonder, is this just a matter of staying patient? Now, of course, the answer is not exactly that simple. Generally speaking, yes, he's fully capable of turning around because we've seen what he can do, right? This is still a fairly young pitcher in his prime, actually. He's got 5 pitches that he mixes in there, and he's in a good situation. Nothing has changed for him this year. There is really no reason he shouldn't be as productive as he was last year. But let's look a little bit deeper here. Now, so far, he has just been flat out bad. He's got a 5.14 Sierra to support that awful ERA. And what kills the most is, like I say, he's not getting strikeouts, and his walk rate has spiked, so the control has just not been there. He's got a 4.6% K minus BB. You don't want those numbers to be close. You want this to be a wide margin. I'm getting prepared maybe to jump ship on Bibby, but as always, I don't want to make any hasty decisions, so I looked at his pitch data, and it actually made me feel a little bit better. So if there is a problem here, it's the cutter. I mean, plain and simple, last year, that cut fastball that he throws had a plus 14 run value. Excellent, right? This is over the course of a season. It accumulates, but still, a very, very efficient pitch. This year, so far, already at -2, and that cutter is getting hammered, a 444 batting average against. And that matters because that's his second most used pitch. This is not a guy who relies on the four-seamer, right? He mixes in breaking, off-speed stuff. He's got a sinker. The four-seamer is kind of down there on the totem pole. The cutter is his second most used pitch, and it is just not working. So if you want to look at the heat map, here's the difference. Last year, he was doing exactly what it needed to do, right? Against right-handed batters, that cutter should be there in the inner part of the strike zone. And you look at this year, it's kind of all over the place. He's getting it up a lot, but also when he gets it in the zone, he's getting it down, but across the heart of the plate, not where it should be. So the big picture problem here is really with a lot of his pitches, not just the cutter, is he's just not commanding the ball very well. So is that fixable? Yeah, of course it is. Does that guarantee that he's going to fix it? Not necessarily. That's why this is where it gets tricky. This could be something that we see turn around like that. We're going to see him dominate or at least pitch the level of 2024, or it could continue this way. It's really hard to tell. Am I worried? Of course I am. If you got Bibby, you should be concerned, but not give up just yet. So I'll say right now 7.5 out of 10 feels fair. All right, then a couple of hitters we got to throw in there. Let's just get this one done. Just kind of like rip the Band-Aid off. I've been trying to delay talking about Triston Casas, but we have to do it. Another 0 for 4 game. He's got a whiff rate in the 17th percentile. The strikeouts continue to pile up. And, well, the walk rate isn't great, but it's at least there. He's taking some walks, but it doesn't matter because he's just not making contact with the ball at all. So the first week or two, you can say, well, this is just a team thing, right? The Red Sox were ice cold. Remember Rafael Devers and all these players just couldn't hit. All right, now they're picking it up, and Casas has not. So I also, think, well, maybe like last year's struggle in the second half, maybe this was just not fully recovered from his injury. Remember, at the beginning of last year, he got off to a great start until he hit the IL. In fact, in April alone of 2024, he was hitting 286 with 6 home runs. And then on 420, he got put on the injured list. Here we are, 420 of 2025, and he looks nothing like that player. And I'll tell you, I can't find a single reason for this. And because of that, yeah, I'm full-blown panic now. And I've been trying to say, stay patient here, hope it turns around. But man, if he's just occupying a bench spot on your roster and you've got other players out there in the waiver wire, I think it might be time to move on. That said, although right now my panic level is about a 9 out of 10, I'm not ready to give up on him completely for this season. You shouldn't ever do that. And I still think the talent is there. I'm not sure why he's just not seeing the ball well, but I got to think at some point it might turn around. But if it doesn't, you know what? The Red Sox might not be too patient with him either. Here comes Luis Robert Jr. Now, there's one thing Robert's doing. It's stealing bases. He did swipe his 7th bag of the season. So there's that. But is that alone worth keeping a guy who is actively sinking your batting average and not really doing a whole lot in any of the other categories? Well, that's the dilemma here, isn't it? Now, I will say with Robert, I'm also tempted to just, kind of generalize and say that this is a horrible team. This is a guy who's maybe not going to be at his best when he's on such a horrific team. We got to wait for him to get traded. But I looked a little bit into his batted ball data and I'm surprisingly encouraged. This actually might be a very simple fix, or well, at least simple for me to say, but this seems like a launch angle thing. Now, Luis Robert Jr. is a very fast player, but still, you do not want him hitting every single ball into the ground, and he's hitting a whole lot of balls into the ground this year. Currently sitting a 47.7% ground ball rate, that would be the highest of his career and above league average. His pull air rate, only 6.8%. Very low for a guy who, though he is fast, also has power, and you'd like him to hit for power as well. The worst thing that stands out here is a 20.5% pop-up rate. Pop-ups are basically automatic outs, and he's doing that way too much so far. And that also accompanies an 11% line drive rate. Get line drives, usually pretty good sign that a player is going to be able to at least get hits. And yeah, that is just an unacceptably low number. And so again, he's getting under the ball too much or over it. This is all about just getting the barrel of the bat in the right place. Hey, maybe he should look into getting one of those new torpedo bats. Well, look, there is some underachievement here. The 208 expected batting average, that's not good. I'm not going to pretend it is. The BABIP is extremely low at 167. There should be some positive regression there. Well, he's taking more walks than ever. His 13% walk rate, that's encouraging. He's seeing the ball well. He's just not squaring it up. So this absolutely can be fixed. But overall, I'm going to hold out a little bit of hope for Luis Robert Jr. I think we could see some improvement, and you know that he could always go on a heater. So let's stay positive here. I'll say he's just a 5 on the panic meter. If you didn't catch the waiver wire video on some players you could pick up to replace these struggling stars, well, that's still up right here.